So this video is going to be me showing you my OCD system for snapping things to the grid in Logic and moving things around, making sure they're going exactly where you want them to go. And it's pretty much centered around this snap menu. As you can see, I have these different shortcuts for different options within the snap menu. And in case you don't know how to make your own shortcuts, let me quickly show you. If you hit Option K on the keyboard, it'll bring up the beautiful key commands window. And let's just create a fake little shortcut quickly. So I'm going to type in snap. All you have to do is kind of search for the parameter that you're trying to create a shortcut for. And I'll just create a shortcut for snap mode ticks. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to hit Learn by Key Label. And I'm going to hit Option 8. That's just the shortcut I want to create. And as you can see, now it says Option 8 right there on snap mode ticks. And so I don't want that, but at least you know now how you can create yours. So I just deleted it right there. And yeah, so that's how you do it. Now, before I actually talk about what shortcuts I have and how I use them, let me just quickly run through this little menu here, starting with snap regions to absolute value versus snap regions to relative value. Now, with the snap regions to absolute value, let's start with that. I think it's a little bit more intuitive initially. And just think snap to something. You're snapping to something. So this is the mode that we're on. We're on the absolute mode. And let's just go ahead and select bar. So we're on absolute mode and we're also on bar. So what that means is we're going to snap to the nearest bar, okay? Or the previous bar. So let me show you with this kick drum here. Again, we're on the absolute value mode and the bar mode. So the only thing I could do is I can only move this kick to the next bar, to the next bar, or to the previous bar, to the previous bar. I can only move it or snap to the bar. Now if I change this, instead of bar, if I change this to beat, now I can only snap to beats. So there we go, snap to the beat, to the beat, to the beat, to the beat, or going backward to the beat, to the beat, to the beat, all right? And remember, here I have a cycle around bar 12, and there's always 4 beats in a bar, okay? Okay, and let's go over division, why not? And so division is determined by this number right here, okay? This is how you pick what this division is. So for example, if I choose 16 right here, this is 1 bar divided by 16. That's what the denominator stands for, is the number of subdivisions you're going to create within a bar. And so we're creating 16 subdivisions here if we select that. In other words, this is going to be 16th notes. Okay, or if we choose 12, that'll be your triplet 8th notes, or if you select 8, that'll be your 8th notes, okay? So if we select 16, now the only thing I could do is move this by 16th notes. See, so now we're moving by 16th notes, all right? Or if I choose 8 here, now we're going to be moving by 8 notes, okay? Or even smaller increments if we choose 64th notes, see? And so this is all just to show you that when you select division here, is determined by this value, whatever value you have here. All right. So that's what I want you to take away from absolute value. Just think snap to whatever you've selected up here. If you selected bar and you're on absolute value, you're going to snap to the next bar or the previous bar. Or if you're on beat, you're going to snap to a beat or to the previous beat. All right. So that's absolute value. Let's check out relative value. And before that, let me quickly just take this kick off of the bar really quick, because it'll make relative value a little easier to see. So I'm going to select a relative value, okay? And so now what we're going to do is we're also going to select bar. And the way that I like to think of moving by relative value is you're snapping by something. So absolute mode is snapping to something. Relative mode is snapping by something. So now we're going to snap by a bar. And what does that mean? So here we go. I'm going to move this over, and it's not going to snap to bar 13. It's going to snap by a bar. So it's going to jump over 13 and land in the same position that it is in bar 12, but except now in bar 13. So we're moving by a bar, or we're moving over a bar. So again, if we're going to move by a bar into bar 14, or over a bar into bar 14. Just different language. So again, absolute mode is snap to something. Relative mode is snapping by something. And technically, if you want to know where the relative language comes from, all that means is that relative mode is going to retain the region's position relative to the bar. So as you can see, I have the entire bars kind of selected here in this little box. And we can see the position of this region relative to that bar. Now, if I move over to bar 13 and I highlight bar 13 using the marquee tool, you'll see that it's retained its position relative to the bar. And so that's what relative means in that scenario. Except I think that it's a little bit more intuitive, a little bit easier to understand that you're moving by a bar or you're moving over a bar. And then a couple other things is, or I guess last thing is just this smart mode. Smart mode is where you can kind of move things around freely, but it'll snap it to where you think you're trying to put it. As you see, if I approach a kind of larger division like this bar 14, you'll see it kind of like jump to bar 14. Watch. Just kind of jumps and locks in there. All right, so that's what smart mode kind of is. It kind of anticipates where you're trying to go. And most of the time, you're totally fine using smart mode. I actually don't use smart mode that much because I know exactly where I want to move something. And so I tend to use my shortcuts with these three things right here. With the bar, beat, and division. So now I can kind of show you exactly how I use my shortcuts and what they are. In smart mode, I just have option 1. So when I hit option 1, it changes to smart mode. If I want to change it to bar mode, I just hit option 2. And as you can see now, the snap mode is in bar mode. If I want the snap mode to be the beat mode, I just hit option 3. Beat mode, not beast mode. Always in beast mode. And then if I wanted to change it to division snap mode with the division, I just hit option 4, and as you see now the snap mode is in division. Okay, so if I just quickly change, just pay attention right here. So option 1, smart. Option 2, that's going to be bar. Option 3 is beat. Option 4 is going to be your division. Okay, and then finally, to switch back and forth between absolute and relative mode, I do option 5, option 6. Okay, so if I hit option 5, we'll see now that the check mark is next to absolute. If I do option 6, we'll see that the check mark is now next to relative mode. Okay, so how do I use these? Okay, so let's just build a basic beat because that's going to give you a practical demonstration of it. So here's a kick, and I know that kicks go on, I'm going to make a basic house beat, so the kicks are going to go on the beats, right? And so what I'm going to do is I want to snap the kicks to the beats. So what I need to do is change my mode here to beats and to absolute value because I want to snap to, so that's absolute value, and I want to snap to beats. So instead of selecting it here, I'm going to use my shortcuts. I'm going to hold down option and hit 35, and now I know that when I move these, they're going to snap exactly to the beats. And same with the clap. I know the clap is going to go on beats 2 and 4 in the bar, so I'm just going to move it over. It's going to snap right to the second beat. I'm just going to hold down option and move it over to the 4th beat as well. All right, and then here's the open hat. Now the open hat, it goes on the 8th notes. So an 8th note is smaller than a beat, all right? There's 2 8th notes in a beat. So what I need to actually do is change down to division snap mode. Okay, so rather than doing it in here, I'm going to do it using my shortcuts. So I'm just going to hold down option and hit 45. Now hitting the option 5 is kind of just extra. I'm just used to constantly hitting 45 or 35 or 25 or 26 because I already was on the absolute value. But I'm just going to go ahead and hit option 45 anyway. So now I'm on division and absolute value. So what I can do is move this over twice. And why do I have to move it over twice? Is because the division right now is on 16th notes, and I need to move this over to an 8th note. And there's 2 16th notes in an 8th note. Alternatively, I could change this to an 8th note, but rather than do it in here, I've created a shortcut. So what I've done is I've created a shortcut where Shift Command bracket left is going to increase the division size here. So if I hit Shift Command bracket left, it's going to increase the division down to an 8th note. And yes, decreasing the denominator will increase the division size. I know that might be a little confusing, but if you think about it, you'll get it. And so now I've hit Shift Command bracket left, and it's shrunk, or it hasn't shrunk. It's actually increased the division size to 1/8. So now I don't need to worry about moving 2 ticks over. I just can quickly move it over right there, and quickly move it right there, quickly move it right there. Okay, and so that was a little bit more complicated, but you know, I'm telling you because we've gone over a couple things now. I think you'll get it. Okay, now we come to the closed hat. Now we're just going to make a very simple house beat. So typically a closed hat is going to play 16th notes. So again, right now I'm on 8th division. So what I want to do is I want to decrease the division size. So I'm going to hit Shift Command bracket right, and that's going to change it to 16th notes. And I want to stay in division absolute value. So I don't need to do anything there. But again, the shortcut for division at absolute value would be option 45. And so now I know I'm ready to go, and all I need to do is just do this. Now, some people might be like, well, why don't you just use duplicate, especially if you know that this closed hat right here is exactly the length of a 16th note. And that's because I found in an earlier version of Logic, and it might still be going, but if I duplicate this out a lot, then it actually starts to go off grid. And that's actually what led me to kind of create this system. Anyway, another way that you can spread this out is by just hitting L. Okay, and L is going to loop something. You can also just do it by hitting this check mark on the left, and then you could just kind of cut off the excess if you want to, like that. And but we're not going to do that because that's not what this video is about. We're just going to copy this over. Okay, just like that, using the absolute mode and the division mode. All right, because I know that these are exactly lined up to the grid on the 16th notes. So this is what we have so far. All right, now finally we're going to go with something a little bit complex. So what I want to do is I want to create a little bit of a groove instead of just having those 16th note closed hats. I'm going to put a closed hat, a 16th note before the open hat. So it's going to create a 1E and rhythm, 1E and, 1E and, 1E and, 1E and. Okay, and what I'm also going to do is apply a little bit of swing. Okay, so if I'm going to close this really quick, and I'm going to select that region. I'm going to hit the events little list right here, and this quantize right here, I want to select 16 swing C. So this is a 16th note swing, and I'm going to choose the C variation. And as you can see, this moved over a little bit. So Command Z, and I'm going to hit Shift Command Z, and you'll see it bounce back to the swing position right there. So this is where I would want to use relative mode, because what I want to do is I want to copy this swung 16th note closed hat before each of these closed hats. And now these closed hats are all a beat apart from each other, one beat. So what I need to do is I need to hit option 36. Now the reason why is because I'm going to be moving with the beats here. I want it on that length, and then I want it to be relative because I want to retain the swung position. Okay, so now if I just hold down option to copy these over, you'll see it's going to move exactly where I want it to. All right, it can't go anywhere else other than exactly where I want it to. All right, so there we go. And so if we listen, this is going to be the 1E and. And finally, I'm just going to show you one more thing. I want to put a closed hat right here at the end, but again, I want it to be swung. So I want to stay on relative mode. I just want to change to division mode because I need to move this over to 16th notes. So I'm going to hit option 46 because option 4 is going to be division, and my division is 16th notes, and I want it to be option 6 because I need it to be in relative mode. So now it's going to move exactly where I want it to, right there. Okay, so if we listen. And so that's kind of just an introduction to the system. Hopefully it helps.